Good morning and welcome back to the woods, and it's a pretty damp old day today. What can I say? British summertime. It's the 15th of August and it feels more like October. But there we are, that's the British summertime feel. Well, as you may have gathered from the thumbnail and the title, I've got a new knife. This knife is from a UK maker by the name of Mark Hill, and I know Mark Hill reasonably well because he does my heat treatment for me. Unfortunately, my workshop is tiny and made out of wood, so a bit difficult to do heat treatment, and Mark is extremely good at heat treatment. Trust me, they always come back perfectly flat. I've never had any issues with chipping, so that made me want to get a knife from Mark. Now this is quite different to what I make. The intention was I wanted a bushcraft knife, your traditional wooden handled O1 bushcraft knife, but something different to what I make. I always overbuild, basically very strong, take an absolute beating. Well, I wanted something with a little bit more finesse, and I spoke to Mark and he told me my knife, the Eagle, would suit you just fine. Bit different to what I normally use. Very comfortable handle. The first thing I noticed as soon as I pulled it out of the sheath was how comfortable this handle is. It's nice and big. I've got a medium to large hand and it fits me absolutely beautifully. The blade, when I pulled it out, I thought, that looks a bit strange, but Mark has informed me this knife is for light duties. This is a carving knife which can feather stick and do some light battening, not heavy, tough battening. To be honest though, I think it could take it, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give it a real battering because it's more of a knife for finesse. But I need to get my fire going. I'm going to use an axe and a saw because this is meant to be used with an axe and a saw. What you will notice about this knife is, or what I noticed anyway, the grind is far higher, so shallower grind than what I normally use, which is usually better for carving. Probably not as tough as my grinds if I was going through knots, battening through knots, but I'm not going to do it anyway. I'm going to cut a nice piece of wood, knot free. I'm going to split down with the axe, and then I'm just going to use this for kindling. I'm going to split some kindling down with it, but the heavy work is going to be done with an axe. I'm looking forward to this. Sheath wise, nice leather sheath, well stitched, stitching's perfect on it, and I asked Mark to put a dangler on, just a D-ring, because I always carry a clip on my belt to put the D-ring in. Right, a little bit of sawing. Got my wettlings with me today because it's primarily going to be used for splitting. There you go, there's a nice pile of split wood, and I'm going to pick the damper stuff for the base of the fire, and I'm going to pick the nice dry straight stuff for feather sticks. Oh, got a damp one. I'm going to look for the straightest one now. Bit of light battening with this, so I'm just going to use a piece I've split off rather than using a batten, so I don't go at it too hard. As I said, it'll take it anyway, but the knife's predominantly meant for carving and lighter duties, so I'd stick to that ethos. Big word for a Welshman at 9 o'clock in the morning. There we are, that's enough done, and that performed just fine. Make some feather sticks now. Before I start shaving sticks, I thought I'd just mention something. I usually review knives from factory makers. I love Falcon Evans and Cold Steel, and I mainly review that type of knife. But I really felt I needed to do one on a British bushcraft knife maker. And one thing about Mark, he doesn't overcharge. Now a lot of guys charge a hell of a lot for what is basically a carbon steel knife, a leather sheath and a wooden handle. Now Mark's prices are similar to my prices, which as far as I'm concerned are sensible prices. You do buy into the name with a lot of guys. And one thing I wanted to show you, which Mark does the same as me, he takes that plunge cut pretty close to the handle. Now a lot of guys start that plunge cut somewhere over here, so you got that big huge gap there. Well, I'm saying huge, just a centimetre. That's just too much. You don't need to do that. It wants to come over as close to the handle as you can get it for maximum power. LT right, wrong one, not LT right, the Sheffield rights. Their knives, there's at least a centimetre gap on their woodlow style, and that's a no-no for me. Not a chance. Don't like that one bit. And in fact, I've had a few people send me them to grind back, a job I don't like doing because I've got to do it freehand, but I have done that in the past. Shave some sticks then. Oh, check the edge first, because I have gone through a few small knots. No, just the same. Number one, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did find I had to compensate a bit for the grind but that's me. That is not the knife, because I'm used to a steeper grind. I'd say the grind on it is very similar to a Mora, and I'm a big fan of Moras, they're great, so you can't fault that. Quick feather sticks. Didn't take me long to make these. Second stage ones, the rough ones. Super fine. And there's the first one. Well, I got enough wood now, I'm going to light the fire. I'm dying for a cup of tea. One stipulation I did make with Mark, a sharp spine. You know, I like a sharp spine. Although, if your knife is predominantly for carving, you will probably want a rounded spine, because you want to push on that, hold on the blade, and sharp spine probably won't be brilliant for you. So I'm sure if you ask Mark, if you were using it for carving mainly, ask Mark to put a rounded spine, he probably would, no problem at all. Let's get this lit, grab a ferro rod. Old Faithful. And I'd like to thank Michael Van Beekham for sending me this, and another one, a slightly larger one, which I'm going to use as my wash kit. Barus, nice job. Thank you, Michael. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but I've paid for this knife from Mark. This isn't a freebie. He offered me a knife, and I declined, and I said no, I'll pay for it. So I know how much work goes into them. Well, that's lit, and it started to rain. That was good timing. Well, there we are, one log fire. That's pretty much sustained now. I'll just use my splits from behind in my stash, keep it going. Fire to tea took 35 minutes, and I'm pretty sure if I wasn't faffing around with the camera, changing angles and worrying about how it's going to look, I think I could have easily shaved 10 minutes off that. So as far as I'm concerned, the knife is a good fire lighter. I did have a little bit of an issue using the tip to light the fine shavings, and that's probably because of me not used to the knife, and because it thins and drops considerably, I found it a little bit awkward. But I'm pretty sure if you use the Yahoo method here, because this spine is really sharp, it would have worked a lot better. But that's more down to me and technique rather than the knife. Now I'll take you back in time a bit. Back in the day when Falcon only did 4 models, they did the F1, the A1, the S2 and the A2. My usual test for a knife, this is before I even heard of YouTube, was to make a bow drill set. And as far as I'm concerned, if I could make a bow drill set with a knife, then it was a good knife, because you do a bit of chopping, a bit of splitting, a bit of carving, use the tip and get in there and do that. And I used to use big knives quite a lot years ago, before I discovered the Scandi. It was basically a big type survival knife and a folder. Now a folder easily gets in there because it's narrower, and then Scandis, axes, that became the norm, and that test was really redundant, because when you're using a saw, an axe and a knife, it's a piece of cake if you know what you're doing. So what I thought I'd do now was relive that and give this a bit of a tip test. This is a bow drill set that I just keep in here, and it's only been thinned down for a single use. I'm going to shave it down and I'm going to do the carving for that, and because this is seasoned wood, it's a bit of a test for it. Now this grind comes into its own. It's ploughing it off. That's quite impressive, the tip test. Now I'm not one of these guys who'll ram it into a board and prise it up, because at the end of the day it's a bushcraft knife. You need to use it with a bit of finesse. If you want to prize things like that, well, get a Becker or a Falcon or something. I'm just using a real life tip test. I'm not going to bother burning it in, basically because I can't be bothered. Cut the V now. No problem at all. In fact, it worked a treat. Just check the edge now, because I have been ploughing into seasoned wood. No micro dings or anything. Excellent. Let's put a point on it. that grind just ploughs through the wood. So it may not be amazing for feather sticks, although I did say that could be just me, but it ploughs through wood. Really comfortable handle. And for my next test, I'm going to cut a bit of green wood. Shame it snapped, but you could see that just ploughed through it. I take these little branches off now. Ah, piece of cake. One thing I am noticing different with this, because it is quite light with a wooden handle, when I do this with a bushy with a micarta handle and I go back a bit, it does knock them off a bit easier, but that's down to weight. Back under cover, I think I'll make a few notches. Shame that split, so I was going to make quite a few notches. So pot hanger notch. Doddle, absolute doddle, really quick, knife bites in like hell. That is one thing Mark and I discussed, and we really came in at different angles here. Mark's philosophy is a knife should cut and not be a splitting through. And as far as I'm concerned, I like that steep grind, so it lasts a long time and it's really tough. Two different philosophies. As he said, if you want to split, use an axe. But the proof of the pudding is this thing does cut. I'm going to do a different notch now. feeling the love for this now. I'm feeling the love for this thin tip. It's really good at boring holes. It will cut, as Doug my Haida would say. Sorry Mark, the baton's out. I found a piece of birch in my wood pile, right at the bottom. Sounds pretty good. I'm going to split it down and I think I'll have a little pop at making a little teaspoon. Bit rotten. That's a no-go, I think. It's a bit rotten. Oh well, shame. Saying that, every cloud has a silver lining. Birch bark. Not the best birch bark, but you can see how sharp the spine is, so the spine is working well. Thing is with birch bark, you're better off taking it off quite a big tree, because then you got more density of bark. This is off such a thin piece, not really much cop at all. This thing is an absolute joy to carve notches with, it really is. I think I'll make a few more. And that's where this thin tip excels again, just getting in there to make them notches. Well, there's a bit of a tri-stick going on here. Performed really well. Now I'm going to have to carve some kind of spatula, aren't I? I've got to. Piece out of the firewood pile. Not. Still good. bloody split in it. Oh well. It's going to be a thinner spatula. So when it's raining, put the kettle over, just gives it that little bit of protection. Didn't actually expect that to go up so quick because I had let it go for a good 20 minutes without looking at it. There we go, little spatula. Didn't take long. Absolute dream to use as a carving knife, especially when I'm putting my hand like this. I don't feel like I'm going to cut myself or anything. Very comfortable to use. Now when I do a spatula, I always leave this section long, because if I'm out for any length of time, I'll use it, then I'll just carve it down. Saves washing it, nothing more sterile than bare wood. So that's why I leave that piece quite long, because over the course of a weekend or whatever, I just carve it down, throw it in the fire at the end of the weekend. Shame it's split. I would have liked to have done a bigger one, but there we are, such is life. I'm going to have a cup of tea now. Well, before I wrap this video up and give you my honest opinion on this knife, I've made another little feather stick and I'm going to light it with Old Faithful, and I'm going to do the power lighting method as opposed to the tip. The power method works just fine. So the Mark Hill Eagle, what do I think of it? Fit and finish, excellent. Handle, really comfortable, super comfortable. I gotta say, very nice. and I did ask for walnut because I do like walnut. Walnut on a traditional knife, traditional sort of Scandi bushcraft knife, is one of my favourite wood handles. Lovely. This blade design is absolutely brilliant for carving duties. It's just really, really nice, and the handle is so comfortable. I think, knowing what I do now, I would have probably asked for just that section there being sharp and round this off, because I've done quite a bit of pushing, and yes, it is sharp. The knife is predominantly meant for carving, so I do think that would be a better idea. The tip is strong. It's strong enough for anything I'm going to do with it, and unless you're some kind of clown who likes to put your knives through destruction tests, there's nothing wrong with it. 3mm, can't fault 3mm. Most of my knives are 8, which is only a tiny bit bigger, so I like 3mm. The sheath I showed you earlier, sheath's lovely, can't fault the sheath. Feather sticking, I'm used to a steeper grind, so I usually do better feather sticks with my own steeper grind. But if you're coming from a Mora and you want to upgrade, then you're going to have no problems at all, because it's very similar grind to a Mora. I like it. One thing though, I would have liked to have seen was a bit more polish on the bevel, and I'm assuming Mark left it, I don't know, about 600 grit probably. I'm sure he left it like that because he knew that I would strop the living daylights out of it. That is the only thing about that knife. I would have put a bit more of a polish on the edge, but it's cut beautifully and there's no dings or anything in it, so I am impressed with that knife. Bear in mind, this is a knife to be used with an axe, not instead of an axe. I'm pretty sure it'll take a fair bit more battening than I gave it. You know, it's made well, it's a strong knife, but it's not meant for heavy work. So just bear that in mind if you decide to buy one. It's not meant for it. That's me done then. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to Mark for making that for me. I like it, and I shall be using it again, especially for carving, because that grind is great. Making a tri-stick, just a piece of cake with it. Great. Until the next time, oh, remember that thumbs up. Always appreciate that thumbs up. Till the next time, ta-ra! I would have stropped this edge quite a bit before coming out, but fuck, I don't know what I'm saying. Start again. So now we do a little moka hanka moka. Do a little Mozkohansky trick now. Shame it's split, but there we are. (1980s) feather sticks, bit crap bit of wood. Perfumed, fuck me pink.